Hello and welcome. You're listening to our podcast, Ayahuasca Assisted Therapy. Learn all you need to know about the safe, ethical, and responsible use of ayahuasca for healing and awakening. Meet the wisdom keepers, space holders, and guardians of this powerful plant ally. Hear directly from the people about their ayahuasca healing experience. To embark on your healing journey or to start a new career in psychedelic assisted therapy, go to my website, avatarhealingarts.com, and get in touch with me. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing this video. Please leave a comment and enjoy this episode. Well, hello and welcome back to our podcast, Ayahuasca Assisted Therapy. And I'm here today with Keziah, and she is a sister, like a friend, and also a client of mine. And I'm so happy that she accepted this invitation. We were talking about this for a while, that she might come on the podcast. And I've been lucky and honored to work with her for a good year and a half. And there's just a lot of nuggets of wisdoms, I think, that it's worth sharing. So that's why we're doing this episode today. So stay tuned and listen till the end of the episode to receive all the gifts. And welcome, Keziah. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Nina. Thanks for having me.
So our usual first question, our listeners are already familiar with this, like what brought you to the medicine, a little bit about yourself. I know that you live in the States, but you were not born in the United States. So how was your journey as a person? And then, what brought you to the mother ayahuasca?
Thank you. Well, I was born and raised in the Philippines during the time of the Marcos dictatorship, and raised by parents who were very much involved in social activism and labor union rights, but also in community health rights. So I was fortunate to be raised in an environment that was very close to working with farmers and supporting farmers and the health of the farmers. My mom was trained in acupuncture and shiatsu and herbal medicine. So I was very fortunate to be raised already in that way of life. And interestingly, what brought me to the medicine was related to my upbringing, because in 2020, like so many of us, it was a moment of resurfacing of things that needed to be really dealt with, like things that the pandemic offered this space for us to work on what we need to work on, including triggers. And so the extreme kind of measures, that public health measures, triggered my childhood trauma, and that led me to seeking just to be open to support that's out there. I had already been studying with herbs and developing relationship with herbs, and when this opportunity came for a medicine person from San Diego to come, we hosted a retreat at our place, small rural place in Washington State. And that just opened the doors for me to really connect with the medicine and bring me back to things that I needed to heal. After several opportunities to connect with the medicine, my mentor, who we invited and introduced us to the medicine in the first place, opened the opportunity for me to go to Peru and study with his teacher in the outside of Pucallpa. And at that moment, I really I wanted to meet the plant. Working with plants, I wanted to meet the plants in person, and I wanted to go deeper in my healing. My great grandmother, who's Kankanay from northern Philippines, kept appearing in my ceremonies and in my visions, and she instructed me to go to Peru. At that moment, I didn't really understand. I didn't know the connection. I hadn't met her. I know she hadn't gone to Peru. So, but I followed. And my first time we went was in the May of 2021, still kind of in the middle of the pandemic. And the first message that I received from the medicine was to let go of my narrative, the narrative that I'd been carrying, having been in some ways really exiled from the Philippines during that time, and uprooted. And I ask, well, if I let go of my narrative, then who will I be? And that just kind of opened the doors of really exploring. And also, I did not expect that when we went there, I thought it was just going to be ceremonies, but it was an intensive dieta with the plant noyarao, which in our teacher's tradition there, they regard it as the father of all plants. And 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 it was a very intensive, like I said, intensive experience. And it just really brought me deep into connecting with the other plants. I connected with the Bobinsana before having met the plant, even having heard the plant. So I think from then on, I also just opened to the idea of our teacher there, who his approach is, we're there to heal, but also we're there to learn how to hold space. In that moment, I really wasn't sure if I was ready, but I was open to learning, and I received very deep healing. And so when I came back, I was I had the opportunity to assist, holding space. And I think for a few months after that, I noticed people would come back, and I became really curious about integration, what makes people come back. And so that is when my partner and I were constantly, searching and learning, and stumbled upon your podcast, Nina, on Spotify, and listened to many of the episodes, and felt like, oh, I need to learn more about this. And that's how I contacted you, and also felt like I learned a lot by receiving also. So as I decided that it's important for me to work with you, so that I understand from a personal level what integration could look like. Since then, I've gone to do another dieta last year in 2022, but also in between that was called to really connect with the plants in this region. The first is the wild rose and the cedar. These two plants came to me the first time I went to Peru, and even right then, our teacher there encouraged me to diet with them. I wasn't ready yet after I came back, because there was so much to integrate. But last year in 2022, after coming back from Peru, I felt like, okay, now I'm ready, and facilitated a small group here, working with the wild rose. It was really interesting to do it in a context of, it's not in a retreat. I mean, we held smaller retreats, but not like a 21-day, 30-day dieta. So, but what I learned from that is that it's also so important to connect with the plants here. And this summer, this coming August, we'll work with the mother cedar, Thuya plicata, and cedar has been coming a lot also to me and in my visions and ceremony. And not only so much to learn about the medicine of the cedar, but also to really explore how we can be of service to the plants. So it's been so enriching doing the ceremonies, because even plants I haven't personally dieted with come, and I feel like they really are, you know, here to connect with us, to work in partnership, because it's important for our evolution is so much tied to their evolution. And I guess the other thing I want to share as part of that journey, which has been instrumental, is delving more into plant spirit medicine led me to learn about energy medicine, and led me to study with the Light Body School of the Four Winds, founded by Dr. Alberto Violdo. So I have finished their energy medicine certification and going into their graduate studies. And it's such a compliment, because energy medicine, it is something, I felt like that is what Mother Ayahuasca led me. I wanted to understand more context, and she led me to study with that, which is a medicine from the Andes, from the Quero tradition. Because also the major archetypes in that tradition, the four directions of the medicine wheel, are also the archetypes that we that are so present when we hold ceremonies. So along with that, I also continue to learn from my mentor in San Diego and connect with our teacher and their family in Peru. So hope that
Wow.
wasn't so long-winded.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing. I think it's really important that people understand, what goes into when somebody is really being called to this path, and the learning, the learning that goes into, as you said, you were already like working with plants before and had a very intimate relationship with plants and the spiritual world, which is, for a lot of Western people already is like, what are you talking about? A plant spirit, what is that? Right? So you come from an environment, from a background when for you this was almost like natural part of life, and then you were called to go deeper. And a couple of things that you said, I would like to highlight, that it's so important that you go to the source, right? If you really call, especially with the ayahuasca, on a deeper way to work with this plant. Not everybody, not necessarily, I'm not saying other ceremonies are not good that are not in Peru, but I think if you want to go deeper, right, then you go to the source and to meet the plant and the people, the guardians, and you start learning, right? You start having your personal experience. You start just working on yourself with the help of the medicine. You have your teacher who is an indigenous, coming from the lineage, bringing the wisdom. You have that professional guidance, right? Apart from that, you mentioned that you listen to all the podcasts, read all the books, because of course it's important for you to know, right, to have all the information from this topic. So that's another way of learning. And then you also came to me, specifically, learn and deepen your integration practice and your understanding in that level. And then on top of that, right, you went to the Four Wind School, to learn amazing techniques. We might want to touch on that later, but so there's a lot of learning, preparation, and first is like learning, practicing, and then being an assistant, a type of apprentice, working alongside people who are doing this for a long time, and reputable and wise and responsible. So you are in that assistant role, from the student, and then you might be called to step into leadership, in some shape and form. But this is a process, and this takes time, and you put in a lot of energy, your time, your money, your commitment, your dedication, like all of these things for this to happen. So thank you for sharing about that. And how was that in your life? Because I think it shows you like that, yeah, there is a lot here. It not just happened like from today to tomorrow. So the leadership and stepping into the leadership, I remember that was one of the things, that was kind of interesting in your life when you came to me, right? And at that time, I remember you were in that assistant type of role, and you were called, to your next step. So do you want to share something about that, and how was that experience for you?
Yeah. So I was assisting, I would say about for a year. And then just I had started to feel like really wanted to know, is this really for me? And my mentor Ricardo um, would often say, the plants, in some ways, they also choose us. We don't just get to choose the plant. And so I really wanted to honor that, because it is a big trend out there, and I wanted to honor, if this is really something for me. And so I asked that, and the message that I received, it was more of an image of people who kept coming into our space. And when I saw that, I felt like, oh, this is a responsibility. I guess it's a responsibility that I have the choice if it's something I choose to do, want to, need to continue or not. And then shortly after that, I was put in a position where, the our team that in which I was assisting, kind of decided to part ways, and I was put in a position to lead. And so it was, I'm so grateful for Ricardo, because he was always there to guide me, um, and also our teacher in Peru. So that, and the plant has been also my teacher, and so many ways, and learning from her how to hold space, and so yeah, it's become an interesting journey. But as you said earlier, the importance of continuing to educate ourselves and deepen our training has been part of that, stepping into leadership.
Absolutely. And let's just say that it was not only the medicine called you,
Yeah.
personally to step into that role, but also you received permission from your teacher in Peru.
Mhm.
You also received confirmation from me, like encouraging you and giving feedback
Yes.
that this would be an appropriate step. So I think this is also something important to emphasize, because I think people can go really bad with that. Oh, the plant told me this, so I think it's important that we kind of double check, especially with the mother ayahuasca, that she can be very symbolic, or we can project our own desires, to what we believe that means. So
Mm-hmm. Good
until
point.
you are really very confident, to interpret those messages and to make sure that this means that, it's important that you have human checkpoints, are like, yeah, I think that's appropriate. Yeah, that I think you're ready. So you make sure, we always have multiple kind of affirmations just to stay safe, because unfortunately I've seen people who was like, the plant told me this and that, and I'm pretty sure that the plant never told that to them, but it was some other energy they were interacting with, right, unknowingly, right? So
Mhm.
what was, like, if you can share some details about your journey stepping into that role, like personally for you, as maybe as a woman, or as foreigner or as just a human being, like what were personally the most challenging parts that you need to kind of work through, that you can kind of earn that, or step into that space?
Yeah, thank you for kind of bringing me back to that time. Yeah, so I was in a team of 3 male-bodied, and I was the only woman in that team. And I felt the dynamic of, while we are supposedly working with a spirit of Mother Nature, and how medicine connects us a lot with the divine feminine within each of us, whether we are male or female. I could still, I experienced some setbacks in terms of just the typical male way of imposing. And I had to really check on myself with what I was observing. I did a lot of observation, and finally, I was in the moment of just like speaking my truth and having to um, assert that. And the challenge for me is not to second guess myself, and to trust that, because after time of observing and speaking my truth, and as a I would say, as an immigrant woman of color, from a different culture here, in terms of holding space, somehow the people that are drawn to come here, somehow what I'm hearing is that's what they're looking for, a different perspective than other space holders in the region who, you know, mainly grew up in the US and have more of the American perspective.
Definitely. I think that's a beautiful way of turning around, something that might have been a challenge in the past, and it becomes a gift, because it enriches you, right, with more perspective and experience that other people might not have. And I think, that is so true what you're talking about. I'm not so familiar if the same truth is true for men the same way as women, because I think for women this is a particularly challenging topic, stepping into leadership. This is not something that we ever did or were allowed to even think of, right? So there is a lot to work through, I think, for women who are in this space and who hear that calling and who are step into that, and serve this way. I think we have a lot of personal baggage around boundaries, around trusting ourselves, around speaking up, speaking our truth, and all these kind of things. That obviously it's our personal process, and the medicine and other supporters, right, help us to deal with this. So how do you feel that my program, and coming and having these regular meetings with me, helped you or supported you, in on your path, with the medicine?
Well, it was tremendous support. Also choosing you as a woman, and also I would say, though you say you come from the West, I feel like your experience is different. Also, coming from Hungary and having lived in other places and now living in Mexico, and connecting with people internationally in this work, in this field. So for me, it was very helpful because it helped me see where I was in a larger context. In some ways, it helped me connect to a larger community, and you were the conduit for that, and the people that you bring to your podcast. And also because my teachers are male, my mentor and my teacher in Peru, they're male, like having you as my integration mentor has been very helpful too, because your perspective, especially in the integration, which is kind of a new thing, I think. We my teachers, they're about holding space and ceremony, but the integration part is something that I was really wanting to learn more. And that working with you has offered that and have made me see, just kind of helping me see that things that I also do in my life is integration. And it kind of helped me demystify what that means. And so I'm able to share your podcast to participants that are drawn to come to us, and also just give some insights from my experience, so that for them it's also not a far-fetched thing how to integrate, that it's something that we naturally do, but it can even be better if we intentionally do it and we have the right support for it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
I feel, that it's important that we have these spaces because, as you said, we have blind spots, right?
Mhm.
I go to other practitioners, to my colleagues, I refer my clients to other people. I refer people to you. I've been to you as a client, because you have some magical skills that I don't possess, so it's so important, that we do this, because it's hard to figure out when you are in your story. You don't see your blinds. You just don't see it at all. Once there is another pair of eyes, another human being reflecting to you as a
Mhm.
right, that some things become clearer straight away, right? For you, as you said, start to see a different perspective, a bigger perspective, the bigger picture, and that kind of speeds up your process, because now you have the information, the awareness, and makes it more easy, because you are not banging your head in the same wall, multiple times, and until you realize, and the penny drop.
Yeah,
Wow.
thank you for bringing that point, Nina. It's so true, because it is helping us see through our shadows. And in a way, it's like, well, we're always needing to work on ourselves, and we need other people to help mirror that back to us, because even if we hold space, we don't have all the answers, and there are also things we need to work on. And I think that's what working with you has helped me a lot, like things that I need to work on as well.
Exactly. And if somebody is telling you, guys who are listening, that they don't need a physical teacher and the medicine is their teacher, and they don't need any more learning and teaching because they processed everything, that I would say huge red flag, definitely to investigate more, possibly a type of spiritual bypassing. So again, just to our audience, just to, when you are choosing a practitioner, when you're choosing somebody who serves the medicine, who does integration, who does any kind of healing work, it's your responsibility to make sure who you are putting your life, into their hands, so to say. Like, so if people need to educate themselves about, how to assess, like if somebody is a legit person, if somebody is, a responsible, ethical, transparent, honest, so on and so forth, that are so important. And if somebody is like that, you can go up to that person and ask, who is your teacher? How long you have been learning? What you have been doing? And that person would disclose to you happily, like, like you did right now, and would not be offended by these questions at all, right? So just
Mhm.
a little, and this is very, very important, because this is what allows people to hold and to create a safe space. Love you to talk about a little bit, like, what is a safe space, how to create one, why is that important in terms of healing, and yeah, anything.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for us, creating a safe space, well, first of all, we check if this is the right um, medicine in the moment for the participant. We make sure that we understand their their health history and what's going on for them, and also what their intentions are going into this experience. And after going through that process, of making the space as accessible in terms of clean, just physically, energetically clean space, and orienting them in the beginning what they can expect uh, physically, emotionally, during the process. We do some breath work in the beginning to help, as a tool that they can lean on to during the ceremony, because we want them to know that they do have agency, to give them some tools to go through the intensity and move through the intensity. Making a safe space is really giving time for each person and what they need, and not forcing them. Like at the very end of ceremony, we do some sharing as part of helping initiate, bringing to consciousness the images, the experience, starting to articulate them as, in a way, as part of integration. And some people aren't ready to share. So like honoring that if they're not yet ready. So I think like it's a balance. It's a balance of, and also letting them know, like if somebody wants to um, do something, like creating a safe boundary, like, yes, you can do this up to a certain point, but we invite you to, you know, maybe not stay too long outside. If you feel the need for fresh air, come back. But if that's something, having more fresh air is what they need, so one of us need to be there. I work closely with my partner. We we co-facilitate, and so it's that balance of listening to what they need, but also letting them know that what we also think would be helpful for them.
Hmm. Yeah, there are rules. Yeah, in other words, there are rules, and it's important that we have rules. So yeah, just help understand our audience that who does it depend on if the place is safe or not? Like whose responsibility is that? If we talk about a plant medicine ceremony.
Mhm. Well, as space holders, we have that responsibility.
Exactly.
Um,
The responsibility of the space holder who is serving the medicine, yeah, to set up a safe space. It's not the responsibility of the participant, the responsibility of the participant is to check out the person who serves and make sure that they are safe people, but it really depends on the people who is serving and who is setting up the space and opening the portal, right, and the altar.
mhm.
So can you say a little bit about what does it depend on if an individual who is serving the medicine, this particular medicine, is opening a safe space or not a safe space? What does that depend on?
Mm. Um, it's very important for us as space holders to create sacred space and to be aware of energies that may come in, that are intrusive, whether they are from outside or whether it's something that a participant maybe unconsciously bring with them. So when that happens, like, we have to be, as my hunter would say, the trunk. We have to be like the trunk, the steady trunk in the space, and that we know we have, because we work with allies in the
Mm,
spirit world, and so knowing who to call,
mm,
um, and that they are there, and for me at least, that does happen, so clearing whatever needs to be cleared,
yeah.
when it comes to energetic, intrusions. Also, when it comes to, if a participant may do something that could be distracting, or distracting somebody in a way that impedes their journey, like to make time and space for that, to address that with that person in
Yeah.
ceremony and after ceremony, to check with them.
Thank you. Thank you. So this is something I think crucially important. I would love, a lot of people listening to this, that a person who is holding the space has to be able to recognize intrusive energies. So that's the first step. You have to recognize either, as you said, it's an external intrusion into your sacred space, or it's, some people's personal stuff, and then you need to be able to deal with it and clear it, so even recognize it is not super easy, because some energies or entities very deceptive and can appear to be different that they truly are, and then dealing with them, that there is a training for that, and you have to learn, both things. You have to learn how to recognize, how to clear these energies, and maintain the safe space. This is crucial. If somebody has no training to do this, if somebody hasn't developed their skills to be confident and competent to do this, and as you said, have already a toolbox of plant allies, who you can call upon and check with, and have their support and help, then I would say that person has no business of serving any kind of medicine, and they shouldn't do that, and you can ask people like, where did you learn that? Who did you teach? You can ask like deep questions of people like, how are you holding a safe space? Can you tell me that? And so thank you so much for sharing so deeply about that. And if you want to add anything, or if you want to say an example to that, for example, when you can you say actually a juicy example of when there was an energy who was deceptive, and it didn't appear like that first, and what happened?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I do have two things to add to that. Well, the juicy example, see, how much can I share? Yeah, I think it's actually happened more than once, where it's an energy that creates a lot of chaos and distraction, and kind of like noise, creates a lot of noise. So sometimes it can take time to discern what's going on. So there was an instant where I felt like, oh, this energy of sabotage, like there's something that's trying to sabotage this process. And what I got was the skepticism and the doubt, like about this work. And as soon as I recognized that, cleared it, but also just stayed focused. And afterwards, in the integration, just listen to what every person said. And then they said, I wouldn't say anything specific. I just say in general, like, this is kind of the, uh, what it felt like, that needed to happen. There was a lot of like noise. And a couple of participants shared honestly, bringing their negativity and bringing their skepticism, and in the end was kind of humbled, by the experience. And I could feel the during that process of discerning, the medicine meets their energy with so much love. It's just with so much love, even though it's so strong. It was so strong, kind of destructive in a way. It's just humbling to experience, like, oh, well, love really, just the energy of love and light topples it all, And the other thing that I would add also is, as our teacher in Dr. Alberto Villoldo would say, like, our best protection is our healing. And so I think that is why it's so important for me to continue to also heal as a space holder, because that is the best protection that it helps me be in my role and help create that safe space.
Well, I hold to that. This is so true. And I just want to bring up an example. Why is this so true? we had an incident. I talked about this on social media when somebody contacted me online, and this person was in a spiritual emergency because of an unsafe ceremony. So exactly what we are talking about. Unfortunately, this person was in a ceremonial space where the person who held the space, who served the medicine, was not qualified, was not skilled, was not healed or integrated, So unfortunately, because of this, an intrusive energy connected to this person. And when this person came to me almost a year later, she was at the edge of a nervous breakdown. She was like about to lose her mind, she couldn't eat, she couldn't sleep anymore. She was like her life was deteriorating very rapidly. And I referred to you, this client, for an extraction, and before we can do any kind of integration work, which you graciously did, and it totally turned around in immediately how she felt. But can you talk about that a little bit through this example, because what we talked about and shared a little bit after that, even though this was an unsafe space and this was an external energy, but this person had a personal wound, that made it possible to this energy to intrude and to attach to her and to, wreak this havoc on her life. So if you can talk about this a little bit, from this perspective, why is our healing so important, because what happens when we don't heal ourselves?
Yeah. So in our energy medicine training, we learned that, we all have this energy body. You can call it an aura. Um, and as our teacher would, a nice metaphor for it is, this energy body is the software and our physical body is the hardware. So this software contains information from our childhood all the way to the present, also from our past, our genetic. And so there are areas in our that we carry. So when we have wounds that were not resolved, or we disassociated, and we haven't, part of our soul parts were lost and didn't come back, these areas of vulnerability are easy hooks for intrusive energies to attach to. So yes, when we put ourselves in a situation where we're very open and vulnerable, then those are opportunities for intrusive energies to come. Not just in ceremonies that are unsafe, but also like in social spaces like bars and stuff like that.
Absolutely. And thank you for clarifying that. And that's why any authentic healer, will prioritize their own healing and awakening, and have their own path and continue, this continuous development that you are talking about, understanding that even though in some areas we might be leaders or space holders, there are other areas where we are still students, humble students, and just, we need to keep working so we can be more integral, and we can create more safe spaces, right, and have more people, because as you said, the more wounded we are, the more vulnerable we are to everything, everything that is not positive or uplifting, so let's say. So I think this is important, again, to emphasize, that we have to prioritize this, and people have to also understand that even if they are a victim of some energy intruding, on some level they attracted that energy, they were a match to that energy, and it's their responsibility to deal with that part of the story. So
Yes.
this event won't recur. This was a pretty extreme case that we come across lately, right? But this was like a warning flag. This was like, this is totally possible. And I don't know what would happen to this woman if she doesn't come to us. Probably ends up in a mental institute. No, what do you think? Because she was kind of losing her mind. She was like questioning like everything, and this can happen, you know, and this was because of that intrusive energy.
Mhm.
Anything that now there is the psychedelic renaissance, you know, and people are flooding to psychedelics and thinking this is the new magic pill, which we talk about in this podcast, why this is not true, but it is a powerful ally for us to, you know, support our healing and awakening. And there is many people feel called to this medicine. We always talk about calling with the mother ayahuasca, and that is something real and true. So what would you say to the people who are super naive, media tells them this is the magic pill, go and take ayahuasca, and they really call, you know, like they are not just wanting to do it out of social pressure or something, but they have a personal calling, but they don't have any experience or understanding? What do you think would be the most important thing, you know, to say to them up front?
I would say to start with personal healing, you know, and it could be continuing to work with a medicine, you know, a trusted space holder, or a trusted teacher. I think continuing to work with personal healing, as we've already talked about, and I also really connecting, like the dietas are very important if you want to do this work, and it is not an easy process to do a dieta, and I think, and it's an ongoing process too. It's not like one dieta you got it. No, it's ongoing. So I would say, like you mentioned earlier, you know, really going to the source and meeting the people, and also supporting the people, supporting the community, because sustainability is such an important thing we need to look at if we want this medicine to be available. And the medicine will be available when the community is supported. It's the medicine, the source of the medicine is not separate from the indigenous community where this tradition comes from. And so I think maintaining a relationship with the community and continuing to work with them is an important part of this too, because I'm learning that this really is not so much about what can we get from the medicine, but how can we also serve the medicine. Like I mentioned earlier, you know, there our evolution as a humanity is tied to the evolution of the planet. So I think having a grounded perspective of this work, where we are going just beyond our spaces or our imagination or plans of having a space and having people come, like thinking of it in a wider perspective of like connecting with the communities back, you know, in South America, but also like how we are connecting with the plants in our region. I guess that's my way. It's not, there are many ways, but I think for me has been a lot about that.
Yeah, it's a big, I think, reconnects us to nature, you know.
Mhm.
Ayahuasca helps to restore. Probably you never lost that connection that most of us did. I
Mhm.
disconnect and you know, to become aware. I think many people on this podcast said the same thing what you said, but in a different way, that they just become aware the interconnectedness of all life, right? You have a higher awareness, you understand how interrelated we are, you know, with the
Yeah,
living world and with nature and with the plants and the animals, and how symbiotic it is, and therefore you are more harmoniously, you know, working with that system, within that system, while instead of resisting it or destroying it or working against it, right? What we
yeah,
often do. And this is something definitely that I learned through the plants, you know, through these
yeah.
teachings, and that feeling, you know, and that awareness is really, really there. I think it's important people understand that, if you really work deeply with these medicines, your life will change, and your behavior will greatly change, your values and ethics and priorities will greatly change. So if you don't experience any of those changes and you just keep going to the ceremony, then you're definitely missing some point. And remember that what we always say, that you are the healer and love is the medicine, and the plants are allies to help us to understand this, and to live from this, I think. So
Yeah. And I also want to highlight, like, I hear a lot of people say, it's a tool, you use this tool, the plants. Um, and I just want to break through that's all that it is, because actually the other way around, the plants are also working through us. We're not just using the plants. So I think that shifting in the mindset, because again, it goes back to is this the magic pill, or is this like just a tool that I use so that I can do this? It's very much like self-serving in a way. And what I'm understanding more and more is that no, this is a partnership, this is a collaboration, and in so many different levels.
yes, thank you for sharing, thank you for coming. Do you have like any contact where people can find you if they resonate with you and your offerings?
Yeah, sure. It's kinaiyahanhealingarts.com. Should I write it on the chat,
Yeah,
or?
I'm gonna write it in the description, guys,
Okay, great.
so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit hard to spell, but what does it mean? Because I
Yes. Yeah,
beautiful.
thank you. So kinaiyahan is from one of my mother languages, Bisaya or Cebuano in the Philippines. And kinaiyahan means mother nature. And I chose that word because within that word is the word kinaiya, which is our individual nature or character attitude. And then ina is mother. And then ha is the breath of life. So I felt like in that word, it just encompasses this work. So
So
kinaiyahanhealingarts@gmail.com.
perfect. We're gonna share that, and thank you so much, sister, for volunteering your time and energy and sharing this journey with me. And yeah, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, dear Nina, for the opportunity to share and for working with you.
And lots
Thank
of
you.
love from our heart to
Same.
our audience. And hope you enjoyed this episode. Stay safe on your plant medicine journey, and stay tuned for the next episode. Lots of love. Thank you for listening, and leave a comment if you enjoyed this episode. Help us grow our community by sharing this episode with your friends, and subscribe to our channel to receive the latest on ayahuasca-assisted therapy. To embark on your healing journey or to start a new career in psychedelic assisted therapy, go to my website, avatarhealingarts.com, and get in touch. And of course, stay tuned for the next episode.